And Rand has basically said that he is going to hold up future Biden appointees. He's not going to allow nominations to go through until they do release these documents. Let's roll this clip from him briefly on this.
For several years now, I've been requesting unclassified records from HHS and from NIH concerning gain-of-function research. The FBI has concluded, as well as the Department of Energy has concluded, that the virus originated in the lab in Wuhan. Yesterday, they revealed the names of 3 scientists who they believe actually one of the scientists was patient 0, the first person to get COVID, indicating that the pandemic started in the lab. I met with the chairman in January of this year to ask his help, mainly because the administration, like the previous administration, has said they will not honor any request for records from individual senators, only from chairmen. Well, on our side are all Democrats, and we haven't had a lot of luck. Until I have better luck trying to get some of this unclassified material or having any kind of letters to help me get the material, I will join the chairman in blocking the NIH, or blocking all nominees, as he's vowed to do. I'll also will be opposing unanimous consent for any bills out of this committee until we get some help with retrieving. Taxpayers fund this research. We should be able to see the research that our government does that we funded. There is nothing classified about this, but they will not give it to us. We've discovered that at least one scientific project, which wasn't funded by DARPA, actually would have created a virus that looks a lot like what COVID-19 ended up looking like. We think they did that research even without the DARPA money, but we'd like to know if there's other grants that were granted, either domestically or in foreign, that are at risk for creating viruses that could create another pandemic. But I'd be willing to work with the chairman if he will, at some point, look at some of our letters that we've asked for request of records. Thank you.
So, look, we have taxpayer dollars at stake here, right? We just want to know what happened. We've got big consequences at stake in the future for this kind of research if it went wrong. Why won't Democrats play ball? Why won't they help us declassify or get access to this information?
I think the only reasonable explanation is they are still complicit in trying to cover up the government's role in this. As he says, he drops a couple bombshells in this clip. One, both Trump administration and Biden administration had this requirement and were sort of steamrolling this kind of access to information. 2, these are not classified documents. 3, this is something taxpayers funded. They should be able to see what's going on. And additionally, he points out that by all intents and purposes, from what we do have, it looks like we are still carrying out this kind of thing in other places. So we are at risk. We are at risk right now. And Democrats are like, sorry, not going to help. Got to protect our reputation. Like, what is wrong with them? I mean, I think this is abhorrent. And I can't fathom being a Democrat, like grassroots person, and not being outraged at that kind of behavior. Like, you are more loyal to protecting federal bureaucrats who are breaking the law and torturing animals and who maybe got millions of people killed and who might get millions of more people killed. You're more worried about protecting them than you are actually serving the people and ensuring Americans are safe.
I think it is a function of negative polarization, in that a negative polarization is this idea that, like, when the people you hate, like despise, when they believe something or advocate for something, you hate it by default. Because it's like, well, they like it and I hate them, so I must hate that. And we see this on both sides all the time as America becomes more polarized. And I think that any idea that's associated with Republicans or Trump or MAGA is something that lots of these people just have to hate, and they just have to think is bad. We see this sometimes with, Republicans. Any idea, even broken clocks are right twice a day, right? And there are some things Fauci says that are true. And they'll still won't believe them or won't accept them because they are so negatively polarized against him. I think that's what's happening here, is just that Democrats are being tribal, like so many people in our politics are. And they're saying, well, if those people I don't like are pushing this and saying it must not be true, I couldn't even possibly admit that they're right, because if I admit they might be right about this, then what else might they be right about that invalidates my agenda and my deeply held beliefs that I've constructed my identity around? I think that's why it's so hard to have an open and honest debate and conversation about this, is because for people like you and I who don't really have that much loyalty to either side of these things, we can kind of wade through it honestly. But if you are wrapped up in defending your team or your side, it's much harder to actually be open and discover truth.
I think that's very fair, but at this point, the jig really is up. Now, I do wonder to what extent people outside our echo chambers are totally aware of this, because I looked for some mainstream media coverage of this story. I wanted to play some video, and I didn't see anything from like CNN, even Fox. I didn't see it. I do have a little bit of specific reporting from The Intercept I want to read, just so people know I'm not just sitting here making all this up or exaggerating exactly what we have. So The Intercept did have a really good write-up on this, and they said one of the first Wuhan researchers reportedly sickened with COVID in fall 2019, Ben Hu, was getting U.S. financial support for risky gain-of-function research on coronaviruses, according to documents obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request by the transparency advocacy organization White Coat Waste Project. The funding came in 3 grants totaling $41 million, doled out by the USAID and the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, or NIAID, which is specifically Fauci's branch of the NIH. Who is listed as an investigator on the grant. So we have documentation showing patient zero was getting these funds. They went on to say the news that U.S. intelligence has learned that the 3 Wuhan Institute of Virology lab workers have been hospitalized with COVID-19 symptoms in November of 2019, significantly before the outbreak at the city's seafood market, was first reported by the Wall Street Journal in May of 2021. But the revelation had curiously little impact, because it was being censored, on the broader debate over the origin of the pandemic, even as it would invalidate, if confirmed, the claim that the pandemic originated at the wholesale seafood market. They said no such animal has been identified, but new reporting by Michael Schellenberger and Matt Taibbi, sourced to 3 government sources familiar with a State Department investigation into COVID's origins, has identified the 3 lab workers as Ben Hu, Yu Ping, and Yan Zhu. The NIAID and USAID grants list Hu as an investigator in the projects being funded, who is a top deputy to Shi Zhengli, known in the virology world as Batwoman, for her work extracting samples of viruses from bats in Chinese caves. The FOIA documents were first obtained by White Coat Waste in 2021, but given new relevance with reporting of Hu's involvement. So that's kind of how things are getting pieced together.
So let me get this straight, Hannah. Gain-of-function research is experimenting on viruses to make them more contagious or more deadly or whatever, making them worse. We were funding gain-of-function research in the Wuhan lab. And the scientists involved in that research are the patient zeros. They are the first people who we know of that had COVID.
Yes, and specifically, they were being funded to carry out gain-of-function research on coronaviruses.
How much more, like, I get that it's hard to know these things conclusively because China tried to cover it up and they've been the opposite of transparent and opaque. But like, how much more smoking of a gun can you get?
That's kind of my point here. Like, I don't understand why there's still this belief, it seems, that you're going to get away with it. The conspiracy theorists, quote, we've won. We've been right every step of the way. We've won. Battle's over. Like, you're going down. You can either play ball and it sure doesn't happen again, or that's going to be like your Scarlet A you wear around for the rest of your life. So get with the program, people. Like, I mean, honestly, it really does make me angry that there's not a lockstep demand from Congress to get these records. Now, there have been a few actions taken that I do think are encouraging. Like I said, the Congress is pushing for the release of the documents. They're going to have to now figure out what they do since they aren't giving them to them. Rand, of course, is continuing to really stand in the gap. And White Coat Waste has continued to lobby both for final answers on COVID's origins, but also on defunding gain-of-function research altogether in foreign labs. And they've gotten some good traction. So the NIH recently, after immense public pressure, has, and literally just in 2023, said it will stop funding the Wuhan lab, which is, God, something.
Why did that take this long?
Yeah. And as of this month, the U.S. House panel that funds the Department of Defense, this is another thing you should know. It was not just NIH funding Wuhan, and it's not just NIH funding all these other foreign labs that are doing exactly the same thing. It was multiple divisions of the government. It's just that the specific grants that are leading to the origins we think are coming out of the NIH, but the Pentagon's been giving them money. Department of Defense has given them money. State Department has given them money. Like, there's a lot of people involved in this. So basically, the House panel that funds the Department of Defense passed its 2024 spending bill, and it includes key language, which White Coat Waste lobbied for, that cuts DoD funding to the Wuhan lab, as well as all other labs in China, Russia, and other adversarial nations. Additionally, it also cuts DoD funding for any animal experiments, virus hunting, or other products in China involving the corrupt pass-through organization Fauci favored for years, Eco Health Alliance. So to be clear, that is a drop in the bucket for what needs to happen, but it is something, I guess. We are getting some progress. And I think what comes next is Americans need to raise hell. You know, you really need to raise hell about this. You need to demand answers. And I think we need to demand gain-of-function research be banned again, and that there actually are consequences for people if there is a ban and they violate that. Because I think one of the most infuriating circumstances in all of this is people like me and a lot of other people. I think Anthony Fauci should be in jail if it's proven that we did create this virus and it leaked. I think he should be in jail for illegally funding gain-of-function research with our tax dollars. That won't happen because there's no recourse. There's no charge we could bring against him. As you and I have talked about, I think the best they could maybe do is get him for lying to Congress about some of this. But we need to ensure that Congress starts putting some teeth in some of this, that when federal bureaucrats do obviously break the law, that there is actual accountability and repercussions for that the American people have some ability to actually hold people responsible for those kinds of actions. And currently we just lack that on so many bases.